Hello everyone, I'm Leo Fernandez. Welcome to this new TVPaint Animation 12 tutorial. One of the main strengths of TVPaint is the ability to create your own brush from scratch. Understanding how to use the brush engine and its option is very useful.
First of all, for this tutorial we will use TVPaint Animation 12 Professional Edition to have all the software's features at our disposal. If you don't have TVPaint yet, you can download our trial version via the link in the description. Okay, here we go. On the left drawer is the tool panel. We will mainly work on this panel during the tutorial. If you want more information about the interface, I recommend you to watch the dedicated tutorial about the basics of TVPaint Animation 12. The main panel and the tools panel are connected, which means that the tools option will depend on the selected tool from the main panel. We will focus on the brushes using the stroke tool from the main panel. So here are all the default brushes. The pen brush. This is TVPaint's most basic brush. It's similar to the basic fountain pen and allows you to draw clean lines easily. The pencil brush. This is a basic charcoal pencil. It's great for drawing rough. The eraser. Great to quickly erase part of a drawing. The mechanical pencil. This is TVPaint's thinnest brush, which allows you to draw only one pixel at a time. It can be very useful if you are doing pixel art. The oil brush. This brush aims to mimic oil paint. The airbrush. This brush aims to mimic airbrush kits. The wet brush. This is a basic wet paint brush. The special brushes. These brushes let you smear, shift or mix your image's pixels. The text brush, used to add letters or full sentences to your animations. It can also be used as a regular brush. The custom brush, it's not a single brush per se. This brush will be selected whenever you will be using a custom brush or one on the right drawer brush panel brushes. We will see this brush later in this tutorial. As you can see, each brush has its own parameters. We will now review some of those brushes in detail. So, now, let's focus on the pen brush. It holds the most commonly found brush settings. First, the size option lets you change your brush size in pixels, thanks to the little double arrow slider here. If you click on it while moving your pen to the right, you will increase the brush's size and, on the left, you will decrease it, or type the size value you need in the text field here.
Come here. You can also use the shortcut Z to resize the brush directly on the canvas.
Next, the power option controls the amount of color to be applied on the canvas. It doesn't relate to transparency, which means setting it to 0 will not make your brush transparent. The opacity option lets you set a transparency level for your color. The drying option can be used to mimic paint drying. When enabled, the brush strokes will blend together. When disabled, the strokes will not blend together. You may also find these settings on almost all brushes. Check the anti-aliasing box here if you want to smooth the edges of a current brush by applying an anti-aliasing filter on it. Check the preview box here to display a preview of your brush under your pen's cursor when hovering the canvas. Turn the local smoothing option on if you want to override the main line smoothing settings for this brush. Clicking on the checkbox will make the regular line smoothing settings appear on the panel here. Finally, reset the settings to their default values here. Other brushes, like the pencil brush, will hold a few additional settings. The grain drop-down menu lets you choose between different settings to get a softer grained or a rougher grained brush. The aspect parameters let you change the aspect ratio of your brush tip. It allows you to make a bevel on your brush. The angle option allows you to set the angle of your brush tip. You may change the aspect parameter first if your brush's tip is a perfect circle. The step parameters lets you set the distance between repetition of your brush tip. If you want to disable it, set its value to 0. On several brushes, you may edit the brush's profile to shape their tip to your liking. Let's select the airbrush in the tool panel. There are two thumbnails here. The thumbnail on the left shows a preview of the current brush's tip. The thumbnail on the right shows a cross-section view of your brush's tip. Clicking on the cross-section thumbnail allows you to edit the brush's profile. A profile editor panel will then pop up. It displays a graph representing the cross-section view of the selected brush's tip. You will be able to add control points on the graph and move them to modify the brush's profile like this. Some control points can also be modified. With these buttons, flip the graph along the horizontal axis, X, or vertical axis, Y. Here, delete the selected control point, the yellow ones, by clicking on the Delete button. From this menu, choose the type of graph to be used: linear, by default, spline, polynomial, or Bezier curve. Those actions can also be performed by right-clicking on the graph, or a control point directly. Clicking on the bin drop-down menu allows you to load a profile from a profile file you have previously saved on your computer, save a profile to your profile file on your computer, reset the current profile, add the current profile to the bin for quick recall, load a preset or a profile you have added to the bin through the bin menu, and remove a profile from the bin. You can also set connections to associate brush settings with specific uses of your tablet's pen so their values can change dynamically. For example, TVPaint lets you link pen pressure to various brush parameters such as the size, the power level, the angle, and so on. The settings for which a connection can be set have a little square with a letter like that. Click it to select a connection mode among these. First, constant, the associated settings value will never change. Speed, the settings connected to the speed option will see their value change along your pen's travel speed. Direction, the associated settings value will change depending on your pen's direction. Orientation, the associated settings value will change depending on your pen's orientation on the canvas. Fade, settings connected to the fade option will see their value decrease as the stroke is being drawn. Random, the associated settings value will change randomly. All these connections work with common peripherals, mouse, trackball, etc., and drawing tablets. Some other connections only work with drawing tablets. A few of those connections only work with specific tablet models. First, the pressure. The associated settings value will change depending on the pen pressure. Next, the altitude. The settings connected to this option will vary according to the pen tilt, which means the inclination. Then the azimuth. The settings connected to this option will change according to the angle between the pen's projection on the tablet and the vertical plane. Next, the twist. The associated settings value will change according to the pen's rotation. These settings will only work with WACOM art pens. Lastly, the finger wheel. Settings connected to this option will vary when using WACOM airbrush pen's finger wheel. Finally, clicking on the Options item opens the Connection Settings window. From there, set the behavior of the speed, fade, orientation, and direction connections. The speed will change the speed curve and set the speed to be reached for the associated parameter to be in full effect. A higher limit value means you will have to move your pen quicker for the connected settings to be in full effect. The fade will set the number of pixels to be drawn on the canvas before your line completely fades out. The orientation will set the angle to which the associated setting will be in full effect. The direction will set the degree to which the associated setting will be in full effect. Clicking on the Profile Editor menu item opens a profile editor that allows you to fine-tune the relationship between a chosen connection and a brush setting. This editor's curve can be modified like a regular brush profile curve. For example, let's say your brush has its size setting connected to the pen pressure. You will then be able to set the brush's size at a minimum pressure. With this change, your brush will have a bigger size than before at a minimum pressure. By the way, if you click on the Invert menu item, it will invert the current curve.
If you are using a WACOM tablet, you can fine-tune your pen settings thanks to the WACOM Desktop Center.
It lets you choose how the pen will react according to the different parameters, like the pressure level, etc. Thanks to these options, you will have more control over your brush parameters.
If you are using a different type of tablet, don't hesitate to explore its associated software to fine-tune your pen settings.
On the upper part of the panel are the drawing modes. They let you choose how your brush will react on the canvas. By default, brushes are set to color mode, which means the new strokes will be applied above the ones already appearing on your current layer. Next comes the behind mode, which lets you, as its name suggests, to draw behind your current layer's existing strokes. It's pretty useful if you need to keep your current strokes intact. If you set your brush to erase mode, it allows you to erase your drawing while turning your current brush into an eraser. For example, I can use the pencil brush set to erase mode to erase parts of my drawing while keeping the organic feeling of this brush.
By the way, I advise you to use the following shortcuts to switch between those three drawing modes: F2 for color mode, F3 for behind mode, and F4 for erase mode. These shortcuts are really useful. I associated them to my tablet buttons.
The special brush has specific drawing modes to shift the current image's pixels, but in different ways. Uniformly with the smear mode, digressively with the shift mode, also digressively by adding color, the A color by default, with the mixer mode, uniformly by adding color, the A color by default with the color smear mode. Warp in, warp out can be used to give warp the image in or out. This gives the impression that a drop of water has fallen on your image. For more information about the drawing modes and the blending modes, I advise you to visit our online documentation. You will find a link in the description to the drawing mode cheat sheet. Let's now talk about papers. Papers add textures to your brushes. They come in handy when you want to mimic the look of drawings made on particular surfaces. They can be applied by clicking on the papers icon here on the main panel. Right-click on this icon to open the paper window. Here you can apply a texture and change its settings. You can also open this window by clicking on the Window Drawing Paper menu item. Click on a paper on the center area of this panel to select the one you want to apply on your current brush. For example, I will select the crumbled paper. It allows me to draw with this texture applied to my brush. The top drop-down menu lets you choose the paper be displayed. The All option shows all the papers saved on your computer, regardless of their location. The TVPaint Animation option only shows paper saved in TVPaint's installation directory, Legacy, or TVPaint 12. You may modify the hardness, aka the opacity, size and angle of the chosen paper here. Here to flip the paper's X or Y axis, there to invert the papers, and then reset all those parameters to their default value from this button. Using this other drop-down menu, you may also create a new paper from your current display, an image from your image library, an image from your computer, which you will be able to select from your file browser. Right-clicking on the paper's thumbnail lets you select this paper, which can be done with a regular left click as well. Delete the user-made paper you have clicked on. Left or right click on an empty area of a paper window to quickly create a new paper from the current image. The length and width of the selected paper is also displayed here on the paper window. TVPaint Animation 12 introduced a new dual paper system. It combines two papers together to create new textures. Click on the dual paper checkbox to enable this mode and then select a second paper. The blending mode can be changed for the two papers using the dedicated drop-down menu there. The dual paper system is optimized to be used with two papers sharing the same dimension. If you select two papers on different sizes, a warning message will be displayed on the paper window here. Another useful tool used in TVPaint is the line smoothing. Let's turn the line smoothing option on by clicking on the line smoothing icon in the main panel here. The line smoothing is useful if you want your strokes to have smoother and softer angle. Open the line smoothing settings panel by right-clicking on the same icon or by accessing the Windows Drawing Line Smoothing menu item here. In the line smoothing settings panel, choose between three different smoothing types. First, the average distance. This is an ideal setting for drawing curves. Next, the pull string. This is an ideal setting for slow and detailed work, as well as drawing sharp angles. As you can see, you will have to pull a sort of string to draw your line. Finally, the average points. This is a setting combining the strengths of the two previous modes. It is often more precise to use. There are several additional options to set the line smoothing to your liking. Turn the real-time option on if you want to make your lines smoother while you are drawing. When this setting is off, lines are smoothed out once you've finished your stroke. Turn the Show HUD option on to display the line drawing assistant on your canvas. The HUD is only visible if the real-time setting has been turned on. The line drawing assistant's length depends on the value of the smoothing field. The catch-up option, which is only available when using the average points mode, will automatically finish your stroke by catching up the line drawing assistant's position when you release your pen from the canvas. The smoothing field value lets you set the smoothing intensity. A higher value means more smoothing out. Finally, line smoothing settings can also be set at the brushes level. This means that each one of your brushes can have its own line smoothing settings, which may override the main ones. One of the main strengths of TVPaint is the ability to create your own custom brushes from anything, like a drawing, a photo, or anything else. Doing so can be helpful to tailor your brushes to the task at hand and to develop a unique graphic style for your projects. To create a custom brush, follow these steps. Start by drawing what will be your future brush tip or import an image on the canvas. Use one of the cutting tools here to turn your drawing into a new brush. I'm using the freehand cutting tool, which I use all the time. Et voila, that's all, you have a new brush in your arsenal. You can now tweak its parameters to your liking as seen previously. For example, I'm connecting the size with the pen pressure, the opacity to the pen pressure too, and making the angle random. Same shape, but another render. Once you've created a new custom brush, I advise you to open the Edit Brush panel to edit its tip. Click on the Edit button located on the Tool panel here. This opens the Edit panel with several shortcut icons which lets you resize the brush tip, rotate the brush tip, flip the brush tip. This icon lets you optimize the brush tip, which means removing the brush tips surrounding transparent areas. This icon lets you replace transparent areas with the B color, and vice versa. If you want to keep the aspect ratio of the brush tip, you may also manually change the width and the height of the brush tip using the appropriate fields while checking the lock aspect box. From here, to change the brush tip's angle, add a border to the brush tip. The color can be selected by clicking on the colored square. It turns your cursor into a color picker, which lets you choose a new color.
All changes must be saved by clicking on the Apply Changes button located at the bottom of the Edit Brush panel.
By default, your brush will use the colors of your original drawing, even if you change colors A and B from the color panel. It is however possible to choose a stamp mode for your custom brush, so it uses different colors. Stamp modes refer to the way TVPaint's brush engine handles your custom brush, especially regarding colors. Choose between several modes by clicking on the Origin drop-down menu here. Origin keeps the original brush tip image you have cut. With Alpha, the brush is colored with the A color according to the original brush's opacity values. With Alpha Max, the maximum opacity level of the original brush's pixel is used as a limit not to be exceeded while drawing. With Luma, the brush is colored using the A and B colors according to the pixel's Luma values. The A color is applied on bright pixels, while the B color will be applied on dark pixels. Luma Invert works like the Luma one, but inverts the application of the A and B colors. With Hue, the brush is colored using the A color while taking the pixel's luminosity into account. Smear is like the alpha mode, but smears your brush's pixels onto the current images. The wet profile also lets you change the opacity of the brush. It's especially useful to recreate watercolor effects, but be careful, the wet parameter changes are only visible when the Alpha and the Alpha Max stamp modes are being used. Click on the wet profile icon to open the profile panel. On the y-axis, you manage the opacity level. Bottom is 0%, top is 100%. On the x-axis, you manage the part of the brush affected by the opacity level. Left is closer to the brush tip's edges, while right is closer to its center. Playing with the wet profile can completely change a brush. As you can see, I always use the same brush tip. TVPaint custom brush system also lets you use more than one image to create a brush. The brush engine will then loop through those images while you are drawing. Those brushes are called Anim Brushes. Those kinds of brushes have different uses. They are often used to create more complex brushes. They can also be used to animate faster.
For example, you could save different mouse shapes as an Anim brush and use Stamp in Place button to quickly place the mouse shapes on a character throughout your scene.
Creating an Anim brush is pretty easy. For this example, we are going to use the Francis Fox file, which can be downloaded via the link in the description. To do so, select the image you want to use on your timeline. Use one of the cutting tools to crop the part of your image you want to turn into the Anim brush. Click Yes on the confirmation pop-up, et voila, you will have a new Anim brush. The Anim brush can be tweaked using the regular custom brushes settings. Some options are useful when you are using an Anim brush. When turned on, the Revert checkbox inverts the Anim brush's images application order. The Anim drop-down menu lets you set the way the Anim brush's images are applied, looped, in random fashion, etc. Scroll through your Anim brush's images from there to choose the precise image you want to use, which can be useful if your Anim setting is set to none. As explained previously, the Stamp in Place button can be used to stamp some of the Anim brush's images. This can be very useful if you wish to recreate an animation from the Anim brush or place mouse shapes you have drawn beforehand. Finally, the label at the bottom of the tool panel displays the number of images currently used by your Anim brush. Multiple custom brushes can be found on the interface's right drawer here. The right drawer brush panel holds many additional brushes which are more complex than the Tools panel basic brushes. These brushes are often Anim brushes. There are pencils, pens, pen brushes like acrylics, oil pens, watercolors.
One of my favorite brushes is a smearing watercolor. It gives me the same feeling I have when using real watercolor on traditional animation sheets.
Next comes some brushes created by animator Howard Wimshurst. Some chalks and nature brushes are also in this right drawer. This panel also contains useful brushes to smudge and spread your pixels, add dirty shadows or dark smokes and clouds to a drawing. The right drawer brush panel's brushes settings can be tweaked. However, you need to save any modified brush to a new custom panel if you want to use them again later. Clicking on the right drawer brush panel's original brush icon will recall its default parameters, so be careful. And that's all for this tutorial about the brushes of TVPaint Animation 12. I hope you had a great time with us. Don't forget to subscribe, click on the bell and follow us on social media. See you in the next tutorial.